Whispers from the Deep. Captain Elias had sailed the seas for decades, weathering countless storms and navigating treacherous waters. But there was one place he avoided at all costs, a remote part of the ocean known for its ominous reputation and mysterious disappearances. It was a place where the veil between reality and myth seemed to blur, where the boundaries of science and superstition intertwined. It was a place whispered about in hushed tones by sailors and feared by those who dared to venture near. On a stormy morning, Mia, a pragmatic marine biologist, approached Captain Elias with a proposal. She had heard tales of this foreboding stretch of water and believed it held the key to uncovering ancient sea mysteries. Despite his superstitions, Captain Elias was intrigued by the promise of discovery, and he reluctantly agreed to take Mia and her team on a daring expedition into the heart of the ominous sea. As the ship ventured further into the uncharted waters, the crew couldn't help but feel a growing unease. The once reliable equipment began to malfunction inexplicably. Radios crackled with eerie static. Navigation systems spun wildly, and the compass needle twitched as if possessed by an unseen force. Captain Elias exchanged uneasy glances with Mia, sensing that something was amiss. Night fell, and the crew huddled together for warmth and solace. That's when the whispers began, soft and faint at first, like the murmur of a distant tide. It was as if the very sea itself was speaking, its voice ancient and incomprehensible. The crew members exchanged bewildered looks, unable to pinpoint the source of the strange phenomenon. The next day, as the storm raged on, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Crew members reported eerie visions, phantom figures lurking just beyond the edge of their vision. Some heard the voices of long-lost loved ones, beckoning them to the watery depths. Others claimed to see ghostly apparitions of sailors from centuries past, their eyes filled with longing and despair. Mia, ever the scientist, tried to rationalize the inexplicable occurrences. She consulted her equipment, reviewed her research, and studied the ocean's depths with unrelenting determination. But as the days turned into weeks, and the whispers from the deep continued to torment the crew, doubt crept into her mind. Were they truly alone out here, or had they stumbled upon something beyond the realm of science? One stormy night, while Mia was in her cabin poring over her notes, she heard the whispers beckoning her. The voices were no longer distant. They were right outside her door. Trembling, she opened it, and to her astonishment, the ship's corridor was filled with a soft, ethereal light. She followed the glow, her heart pounding in her chest, until she arrived at the ship's bow. There, beneath the churning waves, lay a sight that defied explanation, an ancient, submerged ruin. Massive stone pillars rose from the ocean floor, adorned with carvings that depicted scenes of sea monsters, gods, and mermaids. It was a place of beauty and terror, a place where myth and reality converged. As Mia gazed upon the submerged ruin, the whispers grew louder, more coherent. They spoke of forgotten civilizations, of gods and monsters that ruled the sea in eons past. They whispered secrets of the deep, secrets that had been lost to time. Mia was both exhilarated and terrified, for she realized that her quest for knowledge had led her to the very heart of the ocean's mysteries. Captain Elias joined Mia at the bow, his superstitious nature momentarily forgotten in the face of this awe-inspiring discovery. Together, they stood in silence, listening to the whispers from the deep, knowing that they had glimpsed something beyond human understanding. As the storm raged on around them, they couldn't help but wonder if the ocean itself held the key to unlocking the secrets of the universe. In the end, they left the ancient ruin behind, sailing back to the safety of familiar waters. The whispers faded into the distance, but they would forever haunt the memories of those who had dared to venture into the unknown depths. Whispers from the Deep, a tale of science and superstition, of the fine line between myth and reality, served as a stark reminder of humanity's insignificance against the might of nature's mysteries. And though they may never fully comprehend what they had witnessed, they knew one thing for certain: the sea held secrets that would forever elude their grasp, secrets that would continue to whisper from the deep, beckoning those who dared to listen. The Siren Song. The old lighthouse stood sentinel on a desolate cliff, its weathered stones echoing with the cries of the past. Nora, its solitary keeper, had come to this remote place to escape her memories, to seek solace in the solitude of the rugged coast. But as the years passed, the relentless sea whispered its secrets, and she knew she could never truly escape. One stormy night, as the tempestuous waves battered the cliffs, Nora sat by the lighthouse's dimly lit lamp, her mind lost in a sea of regret. Her gaze was fixed on the churning waters below, where countless ships had met their doom. The sea, it seemed, was a relentless mistress, and her wrath knew no bounds. It was then that Nora first heard it, the haunting melody, soft and mournful, carried by the wind. At first, she dismissed it as a trick of the storm, a figment of her weary imagination. But the melody persisted, its melancholic notes echoing through her mind, pulling at her heart like an irresistible tide. Days turned into weeks, and Nora couldn't escape the enchanting tune that seemed to beckon her to the sea. She had heard stories from the old-timers in the nearby village, tales of a siren's song that had lured sailors to their watery graves for generations. Could this be the same haunting melody, the harbinger of doom? Nora's existence took on a new purpose as she delved into the lighthouse's archives, uncovering records of shipwrecks dating back centuries, all associated with the same eerie song. She couldn't deny the undeniable connection. The song was a siren's call, a deathly lure that had claimed countless lives. Meanwhile, Ryan, a writer seeking inspiration for his next novel, arrived in the nearby village. Drawn by the mystique of the old lighthouse and the tales of the siren's song, he sought Nora's guidance for his research. Intrigued by his enthusiasm and yearning for adventure, Nora reluctantly agreed to help. As the two of them delved deeper into the lighthouse's history and the stories of lost souls, Ryan grew increasingly obsessed with the mysterious figure he claimed to see in the sea. A woman with long, flowing hair, beckoning him with an otherworldly beauty. Nora knew the dangers of the siren's song all too well, and she tried to warn Ryan of its perilous allure. But he was captivated, unable to resist the pull of the melody that now haunted both their nights. One fateful evening, with the storm raging outside, Nora and Ryan stood at the precipice of the cliff, the siren's song echoing in their ears. The sea churned below, its waves crashing against the rocks with a furious intensity. And there, in the midst of the tempest, they saw her, a figure with hair like strands of seaweed, eyes as deep and mysterious as the abyss. The siren, with a voice that resonated with sorrow and longing, sang the haunting melody that had ensnared their souls. Her song was both beautiful and tragic, a lament for the lost souls that had succumbed to her enchantment. Nora and Ryan, entranced by her ethereal presence, were drawn closer to the edge, their hearts filled with a mixture of fear and longing. But as the siren's song reached its crescendo, they realized the terrible truth. It was not a song of love, but a requiem for the doomed. The siren's kiss was not one of passion, but of death. With a final, mournful note, the siren's eyes filled with tears, and she beckoned them to the depths. In that moment of clarity, Nora and Ryan broke free from the spell, their hearts heavy with the weight of their own losses. They retreated from the cliff's edge, back into the safety of the lighthouse. The storm outside continued to rage, but they were no longer drawn to the treacherous sea. The siren's song faded into the distance, its mournful melody lost to the howling wind. Nora and Ryan had narrowly escaped the clutches of the sea's enchantment, and in doing so, they had forged a connection that transcended words. They knew that they would carry the memory of that night with them forever, a reminder of the dangerous beauty of nature and the lure of the unknown. As dawn broke and the storm subsided, Nora and Ryan watched the first rays of sunlight illuminate the lighthouse. They knew that their lives had been forever changed by the siren's song. But they also understood the importance of heeding the lessons of the past. The sea, with all its mysteries and dangers, would continue to hold its secrets, but they had escaped its clutches, and in doing so, they had found a deeper connection to each other and to the world around them. The ocean's wrath. Lily had always been drawn to adventure, so when she embarked on a luxury cruise ship, she expected nothing but excitement and relaxation. The cruise was meant to be a respite from the mundane, a journey into the vastness of the ocean. But as the days drifted by, something sinister lurked beneath the surface, waiting to unleash its fury. On a balmy evening, the ship sailed through calm waters, the moonlight casting a silvery glow on the tranquil sea. Passengers reveled in the opulence of the cruise, savoring gourmet meals and dancing the night away. Captain Anderson, a seasoned mariner with a reputation for daring voyages, navigated the ship with unwavering confidence. But as the night wore on, the skies darkened, and the wind began to howl. The tranquility of the sea transformed into a churning tempest, as the ship was engulfed by a massive, unexpected storm. Panic swept through the passengers like wildfire, and Lily found herself clinging to the railings, her heart pounding with fear. The ship's communication systems crackled with static, rendering them useless. Isolated and at the mercy of the storm, the passengers and crew could only hope that Captain Anderson could steer them to safety. But as the tempest raged on, it became clear that this was no ordinary storm. In the days that followed, passengers and crew mysteriously began to vanish. Lily watched in horror as people she had shared laughter and meals with simply disappeared, leaving behind empty cabins and unanswered questions. Fear and paranoia spread like a virus, and no one dared venture out of their cabins alone. Lily, however, couldn't sit idly by. Driven by a sense of unease and a desire to uncover the truth, she decided to investigate. She crept through the ship's dimly lit corridors, her footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. She noticed something strange, a trail of seaweed and water leading from a crew member's quarters to the open door of the ship's cargo hold. With trepidation, she descended into the depths of the ship, the air growing dank and oppressive. There, in the flickering light, she stumbled upon the unimaginable, a monstrous sea creature, its tentacles writhing as it devoured the unfortunate souls who had disappeared. Lily's heart raced as she realized the true nature of the threat that loomed over them. She had heard stories of sea monsters and mythical creatures, but she never thought she would encounter one in the flesh. The creature, its body a grotesque fusion of fish and squid, turned its malevolent gaze toward her, its eyes filled with hunger and malevolence. As the ship's systems began to fail, plunging the cruise liner into darkness, Lily knew she had to warn the others. She raced back to the main deck, gasping for breath, and desperately sought out Captain Anderson. But when she found him, she was met with disbelief. The captain, intoxicated by his own arrogance and blinded by his confidence, dismissed Lily's warnings. He refused to believe in the existence of the monstrous sea creature lurking beneath their very feet. He declared that the storm was their only concern and that they would sail through it to safety. But Lily knew the true danger lay beneath the waves, waiting to strike. With no other choice, she decided to take matters into her own hands. Armed with whatever makeshift weapons she could find, she gathered a small group of survivors who were willing to fight for their lives. Together, they descended into the cargo hold, ready to confront the abomination that threatened their existence. The battle that ensued was fierce and harrowing, a struggle for survival against an insurmountable foe. Tentacles lashed out, and blood mingled with seawater as the survivors fought valiantly. In the end, it was Lily who landed the fatal blow, driving a shard of metal into the creature's heart. With a deafening roar, the sea monster let out its dying breath, its tentacles falling limp. The ship, battered and broken, continued to ride the storm's fury. But the victory came at a heavy cost. Many lives had been lost, and the ship was in ruins. The survivors were left to pick up the pieces, their faith in Captain Anderson shattered. Lily had faced the ocean's wrath and emerged victorious, but the scars of that night would stay with her forever. As the ship sailed on through the now calm waters, the passengers and crew began to rebuild, haunted by the memory of the monstrous sea creature that had nearly devoured them. They had learned a harsh lesson in the arrogance of ignoring the power of the ocean, a lesson they would carry with them for the rest of their lives. And as the cruise liner finally reached its destination, Lily looked out at the vast expanse of the sea, knowing that the ocean's depths held secrets far more terrifying than they could ever imagine. The Lost Voyage. Dr. Helena was no stranger to the mysteries of the past. As an archaeologist, she had explored ancient ruins and deciphered countless enigmatic artifacts. But nothing could have prepared her for what she would uncover inside the sunken remains of an 18th-century shipwreck. Tom, a skilled diver, had been her partner on many underwater expeditions. He was known for his bravery and precision in navigating the depths. However, he carried a secret. A crippling fear of enclosed spaces, a claustrophobia that gnawed at the edges of his courage. As Helena and Tom descended into the murky depths of the ocean, the weight of the water above them pressed in, creating an oppressive sense of confinement. The only illumination came from their flashlights, revealing the eerie, ghostly outlines of the shipwreck before them. Inside the ship's decaying hull, they found a treasure trove of relics from a bygone era. The ship's name, the Lady's Grace, was barely visible through layers of barnacles and coral. Among the debris, they discovered a well-preserved captain's log, a chronicle of the doomed voyage. As Helena scanned the yellowed pages, she uncovered a chilling tale of a descent into madness. The crew had grown increasingly paranoid, convinced that a curse had befallen them. They spoke of ghostly apparitions that tormented their nights, reliving their final moments over and over again. Tom's flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced along the ship's rotting timbers. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that the past still clung to the shipwreck like a vengeful spirit. But Helena, driven by her relentless pursuit of knowledge, pressed on. The deeper they delved into the ship's interior, the more they felt the weight of history bearing down on them. It was as if the very walls of the ship held the memories of its ill-fated voyage. Helena imagined the crew's desperate faces, their voices filled with terror as they succumbed to the curse that had haunted them. But as they ventured further, they discovered a peculiar artifact, a small, ornate box adorned with intricate carving. It seemed out of place among the ship's wreckage, and Helena couldn't resist the urge to examine it. She reached for the box, her fingers trembling with anticipation. As she opened it, a malevolent force seemed to engulf her. Her mind was flooded with dark thoughts, and an overwhelming greed took hold of her. The artifact whispered promises of unimaginable riches, promising to fulfill her deepest desires. Helena couldn't resist its allure. Tom watched in horror as Helena's eyes glazed over, her hands clutching the cursed artifact. She seemed to be possessed by a malevolent force, and he knew he had to break its grip on her. He grabbed the box, and an intense struggle ensued. The artifact's power surged between them, threatening to consume them both. In that moment of desperation, Tom's fear of enclosed spaces gave way to a determination to save Helena. With one final, desperate effort, he managed to tear the cursed artifact from her grasp. The malevolent force retreated, leaving Helena gasping for breath. As the artifact lay abandoned on the ship's deck, its dark power slowly faded away. Helena and Tom realized that they had narrowly escaped the curse that had ensnared the crew of the Lady's Grace. They knew that the past should remain undisturbed, that some secrets were better left buried beneath the ocean's depths. With heavy hearts, they made their ascent to the surface, leaving behind the haunted shipwreck. The weight of history clung to them like a shroud, a reminder of the curse of greed and the eerie persistence of unfinished business. As they broke through the surface, gasping for air, they knew that the lost voyage of the Lady's Grace would continue to haunt them. The shipwreck held its secrets, and they had come perilously close to becoming part of its tragic history. But they had escaped with their lives, a reminder that sometimes the past should remain lost to the depths of the ocean, lest it consume those who dare to uncover its dark mysteries. Tide of Shadows. Ava had always been drawn to the secluded beach that lay hidden away from the world. She would spend hours exploring its rocky shores and glistening tide pools, her imagination running wild with stories of pirates and buried treasure. But there was one place she had never dared to venture, the ancient, mysterious cave that only appeared during the new moon. Her older brother, Jacob, had always been the skeptical one. He scoffed at the tales of the cave, dismissing them as mere superstition. He warned Ava to stay away, but her curiosity was insatiable. And so, on a moonless night, Ava decided to explore the cave for herself. The legend surrounding the cave was well known in their small coastal town. It was said that the cave was a gateway to another world, a place inhabited by shadowy figures and cursed souls. Locals whispered that those who entered the cave would never return, forever lost in the tide of shadows. Ava had always been captivated by the story, and on that fateful night, she finally gathered the courage to venture into the cave. Armed with a flashlight, she descended into the darkness, the sound of the crashing waves echoing in her ears. As she explored the cave's winding passages, Ava came across a series of eerie carvings on the walls. They depicted grotesque, shadowy figures with elongated limbs and hollow eyes. It was as if the very walls of the cave were alive with malevolent energy. Deeper into the cave, Ava encountered a chamber bathed in an otherworldly blue light. In the center of the chamber stood an ancient, weathered stone altar covered in strange symbols. It was a sight that sent shivers down her spine. Meanwhile, Jacob had grown worried about his sister's absence. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Ignoring his skepticism, he set out to find Ava, guided only by the faint glow of his flashlight. As he entered the cave, he could feel a palpable sense of dread hanging in the air. The walls seemed to close in around him, and the shadows danced with an eerie life of their own. He called out for Ava, his voice echoing through the dark passages. In the chamber, Ava was drawn to the ancient altar, unable to resist its sinister allure. As she approached, shadowy figures began to materialize around her, their hollow eyes fixed on her with an unrelenting hunger. They whispered strange incantations, their voices a haunting melody that sent chills down her spine. Suddenly, the chamber was filled with a malevolent force, and Ava felt herself being pulled toward the altar. She cried out in terror, but her voice was drowned out by the cacophony of ghostly whispers. Just as she was about to be consumed by the shadows, Jacob burst into the chamber. His flashlight's beam cut through the darkness, dispelling the shadows and banishing the shadowy figures. He rushed to Ava's side, pulling her away from the ancient altar. Together, they stumbled back through the winding passages of the cave, pursued by the malevolent force that sought to drag them into the depths of darkness. It was a fight for survival, a battle against an ancient curse that had lain dormant for centuries. As they reached the mouth of the cave, the first rays of dawn began to break over the horizon. The malevolent force retreated, unable to withstand the cleansing power of the sun. Ava and Jacob collapsed on the beach, gasping for breath, their bodies battered and bruised. They knew they had narrowly escaped the tide of shadows, and they also knew that they could never speak of the horrors they had witnessed. But they had also learned a valuable lesson. The legends of their town were not to be dismissed lightly. As they watched the sun rise over the tranquil sea, Ava and Jacob clung to each other, their bond as siblings stronger than ever. They had faced the darkness together and emerged victorious, a testament to the power of family and the folly of dismissing the legends of old. And though the memory of that night would haunt their dreams, they were determined to keep the ancient curse of the cave from claiming any more souls. Sea of Whispers. Sarah had always been drawn to mysteries, but the fishing village of Grimhaven held a secret darker than any she had ever encountered. For years, Grimhaven had been plagued by unexplained disappearances, fishermen who set out to sea and never returned, leaving behind grieving families and a village steeped in fear. As a journalist, Sarah was determined to uncover the truth behind the village's grim history. She arrived in Grimhaven on a foggy evening, the air heavy with a sense of foreboding. The villagers regarded her with a mix of suspicion and fear, as if they knew something they weren't willing to share. One name kept coming up in her inquiries: Old Man Harrow, a reclusive fisherman who lived on the outskirts of the village. He was said to be the last surviving witness to the disappearances, but he rarely spoke to anyone, let alone outsiders like Sarah. Undeterred, Sarah ventured to Harrow's ramshackle cottage, determined to pry the truth from him. The old man's eyes were weary, his face etched with the weight of years. Reluctantly, he agreed to speak with her, but only if she promised to listen without judgment. As Sarah settled into a creaky chair by the fire, Harrow began to speak, his voice barely above a whisper. He told her of a pact, a sinister agreement made generations ago between the villagers and a sea entity known as the Leviathan's Whisper. According to Harrow, the village had once been prosperous, its fishermen blessed with bountiful catches. But their greed had led them to overfish the sea, depleting its resources and angering the Leviathan's Whisper. In desperation, the village elders had made a pact, sacrificing one life every year in exchange for the sea's bounty. Harrow himself had been chosen as the first sacrifice, but he had managed to escape the clutches of the sea entity, vowing never to return to Grimhaven. He had watched in horror as his fellow villagers continued to make the annual sacrifice, believing it was the only way to survive. Sarah couldn't believe what she was hearing. It sounded like the stuff of legends, a tale too fantastical to be true. But there was a haunting sincerity in Harrow's eyes, a truth that cut through the fog of skepticism. Determined to unravel the mystery, Sarah spent weeks delving into Grimhaven's history. She uncovered old documents and journals that hinted at the truth behind Harrow's story. It seemed that the village had been plagued by the Leviathan's Whisper for centuries, its dark secret passed down through generations. As she continued her investigation, Sarah became increasingly obsessed with the sea entity, its eerie whispers echoing in her dreams. She was drawn to the sea, compelled to confront the Leviathan's Whisper and put an end to the village's cursed pact. One moonless night, as she stood on the rocky shore, the sea before her shrouded in darkness, Sarah heard it, the soft, haunting whispers of the Leviathan's Whisper. It beckoned her, its promises of untold power and secrets beyond comprehension too alluring to resist. But as she stepped into the frigid waters, she felt an icy grip around her ankle, pulling her under. She struggled to break free, but it was too late. The Leviathan's Whisper had claimed her, and the darkness closed in. Back in the village, Old Man Harrow watched from his cottage window, a mixture of sorrow and relief in his eyes. He knew that Sarah's fate was sealed, just as his had been all those years ago. The sea entity would continue to collect its toll, and Grimhaven's cursed pact would endure. As the villagers awoke the next morning, they found no trace of Sarah, the journalist who had come to uncover their dark secret. And as the years passed, Grimhaven continued to thrive, its fishermen blessed with bountiful catches. But the whispers of the Leviathan's whisper lingered in the air, a reminder of the price of secrets and the inescapable past. Old Man Harrow, now truly the last witness to the village's dark history, watched the sea with haunted eyes. He knew that the Leviathan's whisper would never be satisfied, and the village's fate was sealed for all eternity, a reminder of the danger of dealing with forces beyond comprehension, and the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of even the most idyllic of places. The Leviathan's Keep. Dr. Alex had always been drawn to the mysteries of the deep sea. As a marine biologist, he had spent his life studying the hidden ecosystems that lay beneath the surface of the ocean. But there was one place that had always captured his imagination, an abyssal trench long feared by sailors and shrouded in myth. Captain Marie, a pragmatic and experienced ship captain, had always been cautious when it came to the trench. She had heard the stories of ships and crews that had ventured too close, only to disappear without a trace. But she could see the determination in Dr. Alex's eyes, the burning desire to uncover the secrets of the deep. As they descended deeper into the trench, the pressure outside the submersible grew immense, and the world outside the small portholes turned into a surreal, bioluminescent wonderland. Strange, otherworldly creatures glided past, their forms illuminated by a soft, eerie glow. Dr. Alex's excitement was palpable as he recorded his observations, each discovery more astonishing than the last. But it was when they reached the trench's deepest point that they made a discovery that would change their lives forever. The submersible's lights revealed a hidden ecosystem, a thriving community of bizarre marine life that had adapted to the trench's extreme conditions. It was a monumental find, a revelation that would rewrite the textbooks of marine biology. However, their sense of wonder quickly turned to terror as they encountered the Leviathan, a massive, ancient sea creature thought to be long extinct. Its serpentine body stretched for what seemed like miles, and its eyes glowed with an otherworldly intelligence. The Leviathan moved with a graceful, eerie beauty, its movements both hypnotic and menacing. As they observed the Leviathan, it became clear that this was a creature unlike any they had ever encountered. It exuded an aura of power and ancient wisdom, and Dr. Alex couldn't resist the urge to get closer, to study it in greater detail. He was convinced that the Leviathan held the key to unlocking the mysteries of the deep. But Captain Marie was filled with a sense of dread. She had heard the legends of the Leviathan, stories of its destructive power and its role as a guardian of the trench. She knew that their presence in the trench had disturbed the delicate balance of nature, and the Leviathan's patience was wearing thin. As Dr. Alex pushed to get closer to the Leviathan, the creature's eyes bore into his soul, and he felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The submersible shuddered as the Leviathan moved closer, its massive form blocking out the feeble light of their vessel. It was a moment of realization, a sudden understanding of the danger they were in. With a powerful sweep of its tail, the Leviathan sent their submersible tumbling into the abyss. The crew inside screamed as the pressure outside crushed the vessel, and water began to seep in. Panic filled the submersible as they struggled to regain control. In the chaos, Captain Marie made a desperate decision. She activated the emergency release, sending the submersible hurtling toward the surface. As it breached the surface of the water, they were met with blinding sunlight and the safety of their ship. But Dr. Alex's gaze remained fixed on the trench, on the Leviathan that had nearly claimed their lives. He couldn't shake the feeling that they had been in the presence of something far greater than themselves, something beyond human understanding. As they sailed away from the trench, Captain Marie couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. They had survived their encounter with the Leviathan, and the mysteries of the deep would remain just that, mysteries. Dr. Alex, however, was forever changed. He had glimpsed the thin line between science and madness, the danger of disturbing the natural order, and the allure of discovery that could lead to a fate worse than death. And as they left the trench behind, they couldn't help but wonder about the Leviathan's true nature. Was it a guardian of the deep, A force of nature meant to protect the trench from intruders? Or was it something more, something ancient and powerful, a keeper of secrets that humankind was never meant to uncover? The answers remained hidden beneath the waves, in the depths of the Leviathan's keep. Mariner's Hollow. Every full moon, the ghost ship known as the Mariner's Hollow would emerge from the mists, a spectral vessel adrift off the desolate coast. It was said to be cursed, its crew condemned to roam the seas for eternity, their souls trapped in a purgatory of never-ending torment. Emily had always been drawn to the mysteries of the sea, and the legend of the Mariner's Hollow called to her with an irresistible allure. She was a brave yet naive explorer, driven by an insatiable curiosity. She was determined to uncover the truth behind the ghost ship that had haunted her dreams since childhood. As she stood on the rocky shore, watching the Mariner's Hollow materialize from the mist, her heart raced with a mixture of fear and excitement. The ship was ethereal, its tattered sails billowing in the ghostly wind. She could see the shadowy figures of the ghost crew moving about the deck, their eyes empty and forlorn. Emily knew that boarding the ship was a dangerous endeavor, but she was unyielding in her pursuit of the unknown. With a deep breath, she stepped onto the deck, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. The ghostly crew turned to her with hollow eyes, their spectral forms chilling to the bone. Among the crew, Emily's gaze fell upon Jonathan, a ghost sailor with a hauntingly handsome face. Unlike the others, there was a glimmer of recognition in his eyes, a spark of something that had been lost to the rest of the crew. Emily could sense that he was different, that there was more to him than met the eye. As she ventured deeper into the ship, Emily was drawn to Jonathan, compelled by a need to uncover the truth. She approached him, her voice trembling as she asked about the curse that bound the ship and its crew to the endless sea. Jonathan's tale was one of tragedy and betrayal. He had once been the ship's first mate, but he had been falsely accused of mutiny and condemned to an eternity on the Mariner's Hollow. The curse had taken hold of the ship when its captain made a Faustian bargain with a malevolent sea spirit, trading his crew's souls for power and riches. The crew had been trapped in a never-ending cycle of torment, their souls unable to find rest. But Jonathan believed that there was a way to break the curse, to free himself and his fellow crewmates from their eternal suffering. Emily, with her unwavering determination and compassionate heart, agreed to help Jonathan uncover the curse's secrets. Together, they embarked on a race against time, searching for the ship's cursed logbook, a tome that held the key to breaking the curse before dawn and saving the souls of the crew. As they delved deeper into the ship's dark and treacherous corridors, they encountered a series of harrowing trials, each one testing the strength of their newfound alliance. The malevolent sea spirit, sensing their efforts, unleashed a barrage of supernatural forces to stop them. But Emily and Jonathan's bond grew stronger with each trial, and they discovered that the power of compassion and the quest for redemption could overcome even the most malevolent of curses. Finally, as the first rays of dawn began to break over the horizon, Emily and Jonathan found the cursed logbook hidden deep within the ship. With trembling hands, they began to read the incantation that would break the curse and free the souls of the crew. As the final words were spoken, a blinding light enveloped the ship, and Emily and Jonathan felt a profound sense of peace wash over them. The ghostly crew, their tormented expressions replaced by smiles of gratitude, began to fade away, their souls finally finding release. But as the last of the crew vanished, Jonathan turned to Emily with a bittersweet smile. He knew that his time on the Mariner's Hollow had come to an end, and he was grateful to have found a companion who had helped him break the curse and find redemption. With a final, lingering touch, Jonathan too began to fade away, leaving Emily alone on the now silent ship. The Mariner's Hollow began to disappear into the mist, leaving behind only the memory of a ghost ship and the unlikely love story between a brave explorer and a haunted sailor. As Emily watched the ship vanish into the horizon, she couldn't help but feel a sense of melancholy. She had unlocked the mysteries of the Mariner's Hollow, but she had also lost the one who had shared in her journey. The legend of the ghost ship would live on, but for Emily, it would always be a reminder of a love that had transcended the boundaries of life and death, and of the enduring power of compassion in the face of darkness. The Abyssal Echo. Commander Reed was a seasoned veteran of the high-tech research submarine, having spent years exploring the darkest depths of the ocean. He was a man of few words, hardened by the isolation and the endless expanse of the abyss. Dr. Eliza, on the other hand, was an optimistic geologist, always eager to uncover the secrets hidden beneath the sea. Their mission was straightforward: to map a deep-sea canyon that had remained uncharted until now. As their submarine descended into the abyss, the crushing pressure and the inky blackness of the ocean outside created an overwhelming sense of claustrophobia. The submarine's advanced equipment allowed them to scan the canyon's depths with precision. But as they delved deeper, they began to hear it, a mysterious, echoing sound that reverberated through the metal hull of the vessel. It was a haunting, otherworldly noise, like the mournful wail of a ghostly choir. Dr. Eliza was the first to notice the effect of the sound on the crew. Some began to exhibit strange behavior. Their eyes glazed over as if in a trance. Others reported hearing voices that seemed to come from the depths themselves, whispering secrets that no one could understand. Commander Reed, however, remained stoic, his years of experience in the deep sea shielding him from the effects of the eerie echo. He ordered the crew to continue their mission, determined to uncover the source of the strange sound. As they descended deeper into the canyon, the sound grew louder, its echoes filling the submarine and resonating in their minds. Dr. Eliza's optimism began to wane, replaced by a creeping sense of dread. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were delving into something ancient and malevolent, something that had no place in the modern world. The crew's behavior became increasingly erratic. They muttered to themselves, their eyes vacant and distant. Some began to scribble incomprehensible symbols on the submarine's walls, their minds seemingly consumed by madness. Desperation set in as Commander Reed and Dr. Eliza struggled to maintain control of the situation. The sound of the echoing wail had become unbearable, a constant presence that threatened to shatter their sanity. They knew they had to find the source and put an end to it, no matter the cost. Finally, deep within the canyon, they discovered a massive, ancient monolith, a structure of incomprehensible age and origin. The sound emanated from it, a haunting melody that seemed to resonate with the very souls of the crew. As they approached the monolith, they could feel its power, an overwhelming force that threatened to engulf them. Dr. Eliza reached out to touch it, her fingers grazing the cold, alien surface. The moment she made contact, a flood of images and sensations overwhelmed her, a vision of a time long past, of an ancient civilization that had harnessed the power of the deep sea. Commander Reed pulled her away from the monolith, his face etched with concern. They had uncovered the source of the Abyssal Echo, but it was clear that this was no ordinary sound. It was a sentient, ancient force that had lain dormant beneath the ocean's depths for eons. As they retreated from the monolith, the crew's behavior grew even more erratic. Some began to worship the monolith, chanting strange incantations and offering themselves as sacrifices to the ancient force. Others simply stared into the abyss, their minds lost in the haunting echo. Commander Reed knew they had to escape the canyon and the malevolent influence of the monolith. With a heavy heart, he ordered the submarine to ascend, leaving behind the ancient force and the crew members who had succumbed to its power. As they returned to the surface, the echoing sound faded, but the crew's minds remained scarred by the experience. They had witnessed something beyond human comprehension, a force that had tapped into the deepest recesses of their minds. Back on the research vessel, Commander Reed and Dr. Eliza were left with more questions than answers. What was the nature of the Abyssal Echo? What ancient force had they encountered in the depths of the canyon? The answers remained elusive, lost to the mysteries of the deep sea. As they sailed away from the canyon, the haunting echo continued to reverberate in their minds, a constant reminder of the fragility of the human mind and the ancient, enigmatic forces that lay hidden beneath the waves. The Abyssal Echo would remain a mystery, a testament to the isolation of the deep sea and the profound impact of sound on the human psyche, a force that could drive even the bravest souls to the brink of madness. The Drowned Reckoning. Grace had always known that she would one day return to the decaying seaside town of Haven's Reach. It was the place where her family's roots ran deep, a place filled with memories both cherished and haunting. As she stood on the edge of the cliffs overlooking the town, the relentless crashing of the waves below seemed to beckon her home. But her return to Haven's Reach was not a simple homecoming. Unusual high tides had been plaguing the town, bringing more than just water. Rumors of strange happenings had reached Grace's ears, and a sense of unease clung to the salty air. Mayor Dawson, a man whose eyes betrayed a grim secret, welcomed Grace with a forced smile. He had known her family for generations, and his eyes held a sorrowful knowledge that he refused to share. Grace couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the town's troubles than met the eye. As Grace settled into her family's old cottage, she began to investigate her family's history with Haven's Reach. The archives of the town held a wealth of information, revealing a long and tumultuous relationship between the town and the sea. It seemed that the town's fate had always been intertwined with the relentless tides. As the high tide approached, Grace witnessed the first of the unearthly phenomena that had gripped the town. The sea seemed to come alive, its waves rising higher and higher until they threatened to engulf the entire town. But it was not just water that the sea brought with it. It was the echoes of the past, the memories of those who had been lost to the sea over the years. Grace watched in horror as spectral figures emerged from the crashing waves, their voices a mournful chorus of lost souls. They reached out to her, their eyes filled with a longing that sent shivers down her spine. It was as if the sea itself was trying to convey a message, to warn her of the town's impending doom. Desperate for answers, Grace turned to Mayor Dawson, demanding to know the truth about the town's curse. With a heavy heart, he revealed the grim history of Haven's Reach, a history of greed and betrayal, of a pact made with the sea itself. Long ago, the town's founders had struck a deal with a malevolent sea spirit, sacrificing the souls of their fellow villagers in exchange for prosperity. The sea spirit had granted the town bountiful harvests and riches, but it had also demanded a heavy price, the souls of those who had drowned at sea. Over the centuries, the town had become cursed, its prosperity built on the suffering of others. As the high tide continued to rise, the town descended into chaos. The unearthly phenomena grew more powerful, and the town's residents began to succumb to madness. It was clear that the sea spirit was coming to collect its due, and Haven's Reach would be consumed by the very waters that had sustained it for so long. But Grace was determined to break the curse, to find a way to redeem her family and the town. She ventured to the cliffs overlooking the sea, where the sea spirit's malevolent presence was strongest. With the knowledge she had uncovered and the weight of her family's history, she confronted the sea spirit in a climactic showdown of natural and supernatural forces. As the sea spirit loomed before her, its form shifting and ever-changing, Grace spoke of the town's remorse, of the desire to break the cycle of suffering and redemption. The sea spirit wavered, its grip on the town weakening. In a final act of redemption, Mayor Dawson stepped forward, offering his own soul to the sea spirit in exchange for the town's salvation. With a solemn nod, the sea spirit accepted his sacrifice and vanished into the depths. The high tide receded, and the town of Haven's Reach was saved from its cursed fate. The unearthly phenomena ceased, and the spectral figures that had haunted the town were laid to rest at last. Grace had broken the cycle of suffering and redemption, offering the town a chance at a new beginning. As she looked out at the sea, she knew that the town's history with the ocean would never truly be erased. But perhaps, with time and a newfound respect for the power of the sea, Haven's Reach could find a way to coexist with the relentless tides, to build a future that was not built on the suffering of others. The sea whispered its approval, and Grace felt a sense of hope amidst the ruin. The town of Haven's Reach had faced its reckoning, and it had emerged on the other side with a chance for redemption, a chance to break free from the curse of the sea and forge a new path towards a brighter future.